aware that there was an accident involving school children from Dumfries School, and a teacher was involved as well. The latest information we have is that the 3 pupils that have been in hospital overnight have been discharged and now on their way to the accommodation. All others are at the accommodation in France and Normandy. The police want to interview the staff and pupils today, and then the intention is to bring everyone home. We're not certain of the timing yet. One teacher has sustained a leg injury and is still in hospital and is being assessed, and his wife is flying out to join him. Okay. Okay, we've a number of strategic. Sorry. Yeah.
Leader, thank you for the update. I wondered whether it would be appropriate for us to place on record our appreciation of the efforts of the staff. I understand that they were really far over and above the call of duty in terms of their reaction to the very unfortunate circumstances. And we think it's just appropriate as a council that we record our appreciation of their efforts over the past few hours.
Absolutely. We have a number of strategic items to consider today, particularly in relation to children's services, and we'd like to welcome the young people from the Listen to Us project who will be presenting to us shortly. Copies of the exempt item on the Chief Officer retirements have already been distributed to members ahead of us considering this item later on the agenda. I would intend that at the appropriate point in the agenda we move straight into a private session to consider the exempt report. I have also received 2 notices of motion for consideration, both of which were submitted to the proper officer, but less than 10 working days before the meeting required by Standing Order 15.2 to ensure they can be incorporated into summons for the meeting. Standing Order 15.3, however, specifies that such a motion can be considered if it is in fact deemed urgent by myself, the leader. In determining when a motion is urgent, I consider 2 matters. Is the wording of the motion such that it is reasonable to assume it could not have been submitted 10 working days before the meeting? And is it reasonable to expect a decision before the next meeting of full council? In the case of the motion proposed by Archie, seconded by Graham Tate in the Trade Union Bill and submitted to the proper officer, the motion makes specific reference to the request to COSLA by representatives from the Scottish local government trade unions for support in their lobbying position against the bill, which was subject of the report to COSLA leaders on Friday. It is therefore reasonable to assume that this is a development that the proposer and seconder may not have been aware of 10 working days before the meeting, and a report could not have been produced detailing the outcome of the COSLA meeting until after their Friday meeting. The motion also asks the Council to call on the Government to scrap the Trade Union Bill. Given that the bill is currently going through Parliament, it is also reasonable to ask the Council to make an urgent decision on our position at this meeting. I have therefore accepted the notice of motion, and members will receive a report for their consideration. A motion on the same topic was received from Willie Scobie and Graham Foster and submitted to the proper officer. It made no mention of any new information that could not have been contained in a motion 10 working days before today's meeting, and the wording makes no reference to opposing the bill currently going through Parliament, only actions on the legislation, by which I assume meant the future actions should the current bill become law. Therefore, based on the fact that no action would take place before the next meeting of full council, it could be argued that the motion does not require an urgent decision today. However, the fact that members have a paper and a motion on the same subject means that there is an opportunity to debate the matter, and should Willie and Graham wish to oppose the motion from Archie and Graham in the paper and propose amendments, then they are free to do so when we come to this item. Move on to item 1, Sederunt and Apologies.
Thank you, Leader. We have apologies from Councillors Gilroy, Nicholl, Dykes, Smith, Peacock and Hislop. And as we start the meeting, 41 members are present.
Do any members have declarations of interest? No. Can we move on to item 3, which is the minute of meeting of the 25th of June. Sorry.
Thank you, Leader. It was just a correction to the minute, if that's okay, on page 10. And that was just to record my attendance, because I'm not listed in the names there. After the adjournment of meeting, I was there actually to hear the speakers. So it's just to ensure that my name's recorded in the list of councillors present. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I'll move the minute. Okay, if we can move on to item 5, which is Children's Services Plan. This is a progress report, 6-month progress report. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Sorry, apologies.
No, that's fine. We can just cut this out and we can go. Yeah.
My apologies.
Hello, we are members from the Listen to Us project, and I'm Stephen.
I'm Greta.
I'm Mel. I'm Andrew.
So the Listen to Us project is a group of looked after young people and care leavers, ages 12 to 25 from across the region, getting their views heard, but not only heard but acted upon. It was originally a pilot project in 2013, but with the hard work of the young people, the project has now continued into its third year. We also heard some good news recently that our development worker post has now been continued for another year. So the benefits for the young people are team building, increased self-confidence and self-esteem, sharing experiences with others, and training opportunities, where 3 young people have received the participative democracy qualifications. I almost got it. We'll call it. So benefits for the services are knowing what is working well and listening to the young people and incorporating their ideas into improvements gains the respect of the service users. Benefits for the wider community encourages democracy and active citizenship, more confident young people, and increased opportunities for young people, and encourages a respecting and understanding culture. Sorry, I'll try to go.
Throughout the project, we have done consultations with looked after young people and care leavers across the region by gathering their views and experiences of what it's like growing up in care. From this, we made postcards, which were questions were the good and the bad and the ugly of being in care. And we developed a survey monkey, which was handed out to young people over 12 and care leavers across the region. We got 123 responses out of a possible 242. From the findings, we produced a report, and from this, we hope to take on the recommendations to produce actions in the Champion Board agendas.
So for the last year, we've been doing a general public consultation, asking them if they knew what looked after or left care meant, if they knew anyone who is or has been looked after, if they thought there was a stigma around looked after young people, and do they think there's enough support for looked after young people. We've done this at Youth Beats at 2014 and 2015, and twice this year at the Baker's Oven. So in total, we had 105 general public that completed the consultation. So 72% of the general public believed that there was a stigma around looked after young people. So many of the statements that came back suggested more education on being looked after in schools and more media coverage would raise more awareness and reduce the stigma. 69% of the general public believed that there was not enough support for looked after young people and care leavers. The majority believed that there should be more help accessing education and employment and more support gaining living skills.
We have took part in informal interviews for candidates of residential care staff at Hawthorne Road and Cairn Ryan. We interviewed 36 staff over 4 nights. We were also asked to take part in formal interviews for looked after mental health worker for Dumfries and Galloway and help decide who was best for the 2 available positions.
We have done several presentations.
Come on.
Social Work Committee annual to third year social work, and also several conferences, both local and nationally. 4 members of the group opened the national staff, the Scottish Through Care and Aftercare Forum, using a drama sketch showing a presentation. We also closed the day with a discussion and an audience participating activity. In July, we were asked to do a presentation on the project to the acting Scottish Minister for Children and Young People, Fiona MacLeod. This was at the Oasis Centre. Fiona was impressed with the work of the project and young people. We ended our presentation with a short music presentation showcasing famous people and fictional care leavers. We have recently produced a poetry book. We gained £1,000 funding from Young Scots Truth About Youth. In the poetry book, it contained poems, art, personal stories, and we hope that this would remove the stigma and make aware of people in care. The title of the book, Take a Walk With Us, Take a Walk With Us, was brought through from
You're all right. Come on. You're amongst friends. Do you want me to finish? You're right.
No, the title of the book, Take a Walk With Us, was produced through doing a survey online on our Facebook page. We felt that Take a Walk With Us was a good title for the book as it came across, as the stuff inside it was made to make our experiences and that so people could see.
Thanks to the new Children and Young People Scotland Act, our corporate parenting group supported us to set up the Champions Board for looked after young people and care leavers in the region. This is a group of senior managers from the council, NHS and third sector and elected members who meet regularly to improve services. So far we have had 2 meetings in March and July, with another in this October. The board meets 3 monthly every year. A young person as vice chair for 3 meetings. After this, another young person will take the role for a further 3 meetings. We also reworded the promise that the council has written for looked after young people and care leavers into young people friendly terms, which was signed at the very first Champions Board meeting. The corporate parenting group has promised to treat looked after young people and care leavers the same as their very own children. Some other recommendations, which we have already started on, is reducing the amount of placements, which social work and education are working together to improve. If young people do move placements, they should stay at the same school. We're also working with social work and leaving care and making a going into care book and a leaving care book. We have also had a policy made to put in place designated school managers, also known as school champions, for looked after young people. Next week we'll be involved in the training of these designated school managers / school champions. We have also started rewording the policy into young people friendly terms.
From the project, 8 young people and 4 workers, 2 from YPSS and 2 from social work, went up to Isle of Skye for a long week of Clumber. This was joint funded by Dumfries and Galloway and Clumber 1400. This week looked at core values of Clumber: awareness, focus, creativity, integrity, perseverance, service. While we were away, we did a variety of tasks, including search and rescue, 3-mile walk, whilst talking about each other's personal values, canoeing, looking at leaders from the past, present, fictional, identifying their values and skills, comfort zone, looking at our own successes, past, present and future, and teamwork. It was physically, mentally and emotionally draining for everybody. Everyone took part, but took a lot away from the experience.
would definitely recommend it to other young people.
We've recently applied for funding to the Life Changes Trust to develop the Champions Board. From this, we hope to employ a part-time member of staff to take this forward. We made it to the next step where a young person from the project and the lead officer of the Champions Board, Jane Metland, went to a week-long Columba 2014 network programming in August this year, along with 9 big bosses and young people from 9 local authorities who also are prior. The next stage for us is to submit our final application in October. We hope to hear back by January, and if we're successful, the funding will be received in March next year. The next steps is we're hoping to promote the Listen to Us project further by going into schools, working with young groups and other agencies. We also hope to update our DVD next year. We hope to get a public Facebook and Twitter page, if possible, which is young person friendly and will provide access to services that they may need. We hope to do a general public survey monkey based on public consultations being done. And with care experience young people. We hope this improves the services and makes a way forward to improve them all.
We will continue to meet regularly with Champions Board to make sure the bosses keep to their promise. We'll also be doing a presentation to third-year social work students at the University of West Scotland, and also we'll be doing another 3 secondary schools over the next 6 months.
We're also keen to recruit more young people from each of the 4 areas to get their voices heard, and obviously, as Mel has said, next week we'll be involved in the training of the school managers, school champions. So I've already let the cat out of the bag for that one, but oh well. So any questions?
Members? No? Well, I'd like to thank Stephen, Greta, Mel and Angie. Sorry? Ian?
No, thanks, David. Maybe you're just about to say what I was going to attempt to say in regards, not any questions, but thanks very much for your presentation. Maybe you'll finish this off, but thanks very much for your presentation. It's not the average person that stands up in front of 47 councillors. It's a big, really, really big achievement to do, and a frightening prospect. I certainly didn't do it till I was in my 40s. So well done for that, and listen, all the best in your future for your project.
Thank you.
Yep, Andy.
Thanks very much. I was fortunate, or unfortunate, I'm not sure, to be at the very first meeting, Gavin and myself, and the distance they've travelled, the young people presenting here today, is absolutely immense. They're just like night and day. They would never have been able to do what they did today, and it is, just to echo, it's really a daunting prospect speaking to a big audience like this. So well done, and just keep the improvement going, I think, is the task from here on in.
Thank you.
Jane?
It's not a question, if you indulge me, Leader, but I do want to say to the young people that you're having an effect already. I do assure you that members do ask about placements and performance indicators, all the sort of dull stuff, but it's prompted by what you're telling us. So I do assure you that what you're doing at the moment definitely has an impact, so keep doing it.
Okay, once again, thanks very much, Stephen, Greta, Mel and Angie, for the presentation. I think you'll get for the feeling of the members that we do appreciate that the Listen to Us project is very well thought of. It's an excellent project, and the voice you create, I think it's been mentioned, is a very strong voice for young people, and it's trying to get rid of some of the stigma that's embedded in some areas by looked after persons. Okay, thanks very much. Okay, members, I think we're ready now. We can move now on to item 5, which is Children's Services Plan. This support provides members with a 6-month progress update on the delivery of the Children's Service Plan ahead of a full annual report, which we will receive early next year. The Children's Service Plan is a really important plan of our commitment to provide the best start in life for all our children. Working with other agencies in the region, we agreed an 18-month plan to address the inspection recommendations focusing on vulnerability. And members will recall that the approach has been fully endorsed by the Care Inspectorate. A long-term plan under the auspices of the new Children and Young People Scotland 2014 Act will be prepared over the next year, and this current plan allows us to focus on the areas we have prioritised on the safety and well-being of vulnerable children and young people. Progress continues to be made in a range of areas, and it is important to note the positive feedback from staff, children and young people and parents. I also welcome the appointment of new independent chair, Liz Jamieson, who will continue to provide a focus for improvement and progress. I would also note the challenges in maintaining the momentum to deliver the plan and the dependency on elements of some of the statutory guidance on GIRFEC. Colin Grant is here to deal with any questions arising from the report. Members? Yep.
Yeah, Chair, not so much a report, but looking at the issues and recognising that there are, or it is a difficult and complex issue, the whole children's service plan, the 6-month progress and so forth, the children's plan. I'm looking at some of the issues in here and what is being regarded as the committee remains the key driver, and that's the Child Protection Committee. And I very much see this as looking at hybrid. I've made the point in the past where it very much, in my opinion, looks at children who you can visibly see the abuse, the neglect that some of these kids suffer. And I welcome this to continue. But there are others within this who are at risk and fall below what I regard as the radar, where some of the issues are not visible, but still are very much at risk for some of these children. I'm looking at 3.7 in the report, Chair, where guidance and multi-agency agreement template on chronologies reinforced by new training in this area are starting to have an impact. And again, I've met with the Chief Executive of the Health Board and the Director of Education on how we can improve the agency, the multi-agency work, the coordination and so forth. And just within the last week or so, Ian Dick and I attended a school board meeting where the named person is occupied for a great deal of their time just on the issue of GIRFEC, children's meetings and so forth. So there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of the delivery. I myself will be meeting with the Care Inspectorate tomorrow evening, along with a group of parents whose children suffer either severe disabilities and or autism, and that again is to look at getting it right for every child and the services we provide. I'm looking at 3.12, Chair, and I wonder what this actually means. However, some of the actions in the GIRFEC group's action plan are dependent on or will be impacted by the release of the Scottish Government's statutory guidance on GIRFEC implementation. I'm conscious of the fact that the Act doesn't come in until August 2016, but we should be hitting the ground running by that time, where our plan is well established and indeed the good practices are well in place. Chair, as I say, I started by saying it is a difficult and complex issue. I would hope that the Council, and I'm looking at Alistair Geddes here, that some time ago moved that we should have more officer member working groups. Given the complexity of this issue, I would hope that the Council would accept that we do have an officer member working group just to look at this issue and how it is impacting on children, on people who are expected to deliver as named persons, both in council terms and in health, and also the professional advice that would be required from the multi-agencies that are involved. I would hope, Chair, that we do set up a working group, notwithstanding that there is a Child Protection Committee, but it's very much made of officers. I would hope that members would accept a working group, Chair, and so move.
I don't necessarily follow everything you're saying there, Willie, about, you know, your implication is that we're standing still with GIRFEC. And, you know, I take an exception to that. Actually, I take an exception to all the hard work that officers are doing on this. And as you rightly said, that the GIRFEC is, you know, not being implemented till 2016. But we are working towards that, and we're doing our utmost to get it right for every child. And we are not standing still. We are actually moving forward and trying our best. And as you well know from communications, that is the case. Colin, I'll let you come in.
Thanks, Chair. Maybe just pick up a couple of issues. Councillor Scobie's quite right that GIRFEC's about earlier intervention. This plan, the current Children's Services Plan, is though squarely focused on particular vulnerability and in the first instance keeping children safe. That was in the back of the very disappointing inspection we had just over a year ago, as you know. The longer term aim is clearly through GIRFEC to intervene earlier and, as Councillor Scobie says, recognise those children who can sometimes come under the radar. I would concur with the leader's view that there has been a lot of progress made, but our watchwords are around no complacency. There is much still to be done. It will be a long time before we are absolutely comfortable that we've got the very best possible service, but we're working very, very hard to get there.
Okay, Jim.
Thanks, Leader. With reference to paragraph 3.6 on page 16, I've picked out a statement here that the template streamlines the process with a focus on planning rather than minute-taking. Now, I fully agree with the idea of streamlining minutes, but I would like an assurance that all agreed actions and timelines are scrupulously recorded and passed to all the relevant partners.
Elaine.
Thank you, Leader. I can absolutely give assurance that all actions within the minute are recorded, and the Chair has the responsibility to ensure that those are implemented. Absolute assurance that nothing is lost through the new process.
Okay. We've got Ian first, I think. Ian.
Thanks, Leader. It was just a quick comment for us to say we actually endorsed this. We spoke about it as a group. We endorsed the direction of this as well. We felt that 312, if there was it had been identified, if there was weaknesses, extra resources were actually being put in and adequately resourced. Pre-birth protocol was also mentioned as well. We felt that was a step in the right direction. So we actually endorsed in regards to this report, Leader.
Okay.
As regards 312, we, in such a long-term plan and with such complexity and so many agencies involved, we were very clear that we wanted to take a sort of breathing space to look at how much progress we'd made. At that point, we identified any areas that we thought were in danger of slippage and have refocused on those on a 10 priority plan, and indeed have, through the new appointments of the independent chair of child protection and indeed appointment of substantive support around the improvement agenda, added some resources to make absolutely certain that we nail what's in the plan.
Okay, it's Ian.
Thanks, Chair. Just to expand on the point that Willie made about the Parent Council the other night, and it's something of great concern that I think really needs to be addressed. The head teacher had made the point about being a named person, which then attracts all the responsibility that comes with that, where I think the instance she cited was a dentist had phoned up to say one of the children hadn't attended a dental appointment. The point I'm making here is that on top of all the duties head teachers already have, it needs to be of some concern the additional pressures that have been put on our head teachers by being a named person.
Thanks, Chair. Councillor's quite right, actually, and that's one of the reasons why there's been a little bit of a delay on the release of the Scottish Government's guidance, because that's one of the things that they're considering at the moment. It's really important that we don't assume that the named person agenda resolves all issues. All of the partners still need to be at the table, and one issue that people are a wee bit concerned about is that head teachers or indeed health visitors could be swamped by information, for example, on a Monday morning. So what we're looking at just now is government guidance coming through and indeed a way of filtering so that significant incidents are those which are reported. But it's certainly something we're watching carefully, Councillor.
Yeah, Andy.
Thanks, Leader. I'm a wee bit at a loss here because my understanding this is a multi-agency response, and we're getting an update here on the multi-agency processes that's taking its way through this whole improvement plan. So it's not a council response. We need to remember that it's a response of everybody else who's involved in looking after the young people in this region. And that's the crucial thing for me here. And Colin answered many of the questions, but I think we just need to be absolutely certain this is what this is about. It's not about the council's performance, it's about the joint performance of everybody.
Again, absolutely, although this report is coming here, there will be reports going to the Health Board too, and we are 100% clear that all members are at the table, and indeed this morning at this Children's Services Executive Group, Councillor, we did have Health Police represented.
Jen.
Thank you, Leader. At page 16, 3.6, the second bullet point, 80% of young people understood the reason why the meeting was called. Only 20% said they were not sure why the meeting was going to take place. My fear is that 1 in 5 children still not sure what's going on. And I think we should make sure every child should feel comfortable when they're attending the meeting, and they should understand what's going on. And I understand, as Director says, still lots to do, but I would appreciate that we must get it right for every child.
Thank you, Leader. Absolutely give you assurance that we're working hard to make sure that for all young people involved in this process, then they fully understand the implications. We have only started this new process. We've started to measure it, so we now have a baseline to build upon, and we absolutely understand that we still have a way to go to make it 100%.
Anyone else? Sorry, Graham.
Thank you, Chair. In light of the comments of the Director and the severity of this issue, I'm inclined to agree, not surprisingly, with Councillor Scobie. I think a joint officer working group would ensure that elected members have a place at the table and are fully aware of what's going on, and I'm quite happy to second this motion.
Just on that, I know that there's an ad hoc subcommittee scheme of delegation, and they're looking at the new committee structures, and they're looking at what needs to support committees. So that would be probably the best place to have that, that discussion in that ad hoc subcommittee. Willie, you want back in?
Yeah, Chair, just on your point that you seem to take exception to something I didn't say, in that, it's open to your own interpretation, I accept that.
You did, sorry, Councillor Scobie, it's not, you actually did mention about standing still, but yeah.
I'm quite sure it will be reflected in the tape, Chair, and if I did, then I will apologise if I used those words. What I said was it was a difficult and complex issue, and I recognised the Child Protection Committee and hope that it continues. I will repeat that it's very much, and the Director Colin did recognise, it's to keep children safe. So that's with my remark to the high risk, the visible ones that you can see the abuse, that the neglect is there, but there are those that fall below the radar, and I'm pleased to note that the Director recognised that. So, my points have been well recognised. It's a multi-agency issue, and we've got to make sure we are on top of the workings of the multi-agency coordination, and it's to that that I address myself in the working group, and would remain as such on the motion on the table, Chair.
Okay, any other member? Any other phones to go off? No? Sorry, Andy.
Can you get some governance advice, Leader, because have we got the power to actually have an officer working group in a multi-agency thing? I would suggest we probably don't. We all respect Willie, and I understand where he's coming from.
No, there are no officer member working groups with that power. I would commend that, though, we do try and work this through the ad hoc subcommittee review.
Perhaps to make sure that we don't go to a vote on such a big issue, if the members are willing, I'd be happy to prepare papers setting out a range of options of how members could interact across the agencies that support the committee structures coming forward. So if members are happy, I'll make sure a range of options is brought to the subcommittee for their consideration. Because I think it's not just in this, in developing a children's services structure, members will need to have sight beyond the council limits. So if members are happy, I'll make sure that the papers provide a range of options and considerations for the committee.
Happy to accept that, Chairman. Be able to speak at that ad hoc committee. Thank you.
Okay. So we've got the recommendations we've considered, and with that, with that added comment from the Chief Executive, can we note 1 and 2? If we move on to item 6, which is the shape of the council progress report again. This report presents the progress made in taking forward the shape of the council programme since our last update at the end of June 2015. Members will recall that we agreed a new head of service structure in June, and I welcome the update included in this report, which provides for the outcomes of this process at Appendix 3. I'm pleased to see that the continued progress of the service reviews which are coming forward under the agreed programme as part of the council budget. The programme remains on track, and members will have had an opportunity to review and agree service scopes over recent months, and now look forward to the presentation of options at future service committees. The Chief Executive and Directors are here to clarify any issues and answer any questions. Members? Jane?
Thank you very much, Leader. Yes, with respect to reviews and presentation of options, at yesterday's meeting of the Economy, Environment and Infrastructure Committee, we were advised about the review concerning waste management and community and customer services review, which is here, and which we expect to anticipate £750,000 from that review. When are we going to, and how are we going to make the division of spoils between these two reviews? Because that's not clear. We were told yesterday that it would be up to the committees, but what is the mechanism for sorting that particular problem out? Please.
Right, thank you, Leader. Yes, in the report to the EEI committee yesterday, we did explain that the service review for neighbourhood services and CCS did initially include the waste collection. Now that waste collection is the responsibility of the EEI committee, that has been disaggregated from that service review, and the appropriate proportion of savings will be taken by and decided by the EEI committee in due course. The proportion of savings from the total savings initiated in the service review are for 16-17 about £165,000, and then there are recurring savings beyond that for 17-18 of approximately 200, and I think it's about £280,000.
I don't think I'm any the wiser, frankly. I don't know anybody else is.
I'd like to elaborate on that.
Okay, right, I'll try and explain that simpler. The service review for the rest of neighbourhood services will continue to look at options for savings involving street cleansing, burials, grounds maintenance, etc. And the savings for waste collection will be considered in the general rollout of our future new collection system with the existing system that collects the residual bin. So that will be done in conjunction with the waste collection planning.
Okay, thank you. Any other member? Ian?
Just on that point, just a small bit. I mean, my understanding was that the enterprising side of the council would come under the EI committee and it would be resolved through that manner. So I think that's what I'm thinking, what Alistair's saying, unless I'm wrong. Just I'd like reassurance on that. I think page 34, obviously I don't think you've touched on it yet, Leader, in regards to the vacancy and it's now been filled. I think it's good to see that that's been filled and we've got a full structure in place. Other than that, we were content with the update and the way the shape of the council's moving forward.
Yes, I can confirm that the waste collection service will be the responsibility of the head of enterprising services.
Just on vacancies, I was wondering if there was going to be a verbal update just to confirm the outcome of the Employment and Appeals Subcommittee process at 3.14.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm delighted to announce that Rona Lewis has been successful, and I'd have to say I congratulated her and gave her a whole load of work on Monday. But I believe it was a very robust process, and certainly the best candidate came through that process. So yes, that is the final vacancy in the head of service structure in place. We'll now move very quickly to put the structures in below.
Okay, can we go to the recommendations? Can we note 1 and 2 and agree 3? Yep. Thank you. If we move on to item 7, which is the annual Treasury Management Report. The Council is required to receive an annual Treasury Management Review setting out the Council's approach to management, investment, cash flows, banking, money market and capital market transactions. The Council agreed its Treasury Management Strategy 2014-15 at full Council on 27th of March 2014. The end of the year debt position of the Council was £182 million, in line with the agreed strategy and as highlighted at paragraph 3.4, reflecting the planned reduction in balances as well as the spend on the brief capital programme. I think Paul, somewhere, are they hiding? Paul and Andy, are you there? Right, we'll just do it ourselves then. No. This is Can someone try and find Paul and Andy?
Go on, you take us through, Leader.
Yeah, we'll do it. Okay then. Can we go to the recommendations?
Absolutely.
Ian. Well, no early. They should be here. Yeah. Do you want to, Ian, did you want in for a question? Sorry, Ian Dick was it. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks. I'll just ask my standing question.
Sorry, can you calm down, members, please?
If I could just ask my standing question, how are we getting on with succession management for the Treasury management?
Thank you very much for that question, Councillor Dick. Lorna has instructed Paul to bring forward proposals for the future structure of the service, which will cover both the succession planning and also within finance we have a range of single person dependencies. So that structure will be coming forward to Lorna for her consideration, and we'd look to report that back to Policy and Resources to provide the assurances the member's looking for. I think that we've been very blessed by having very talented officers, but there is a risk moving forward. So what we're looking for is a refreshed structure for the service. We have some very talented officers below that need to be brought through. So that work will be undertaken and will be brought back to a future Policy and Resources Committee.
Okay, any other member? No, we won't go to the recommendations. Can we note 1 and 2? Okay. We go on to item 8, which is the report provides updated information in relation to groupings in the council and asks us to determine the allocation of seats to non-affiliated members on subcommittees of 7. There are 3 subcommittees of 7 within the council. The ad hoc review of schemes is the only subcommittee of full council. This is the only subcommittee where we are required to determine an allocation of place today. There are 2 other subcommittees of 7, being the Social Work Services Subcommittee and the Welfare Reform Subcommittee. The Social Work Subcommittee obviously is from Social Work, and the Welfare Reform Subcommittee is a subcommittee of Policy Resources, so the members on them committees can decide which one wants to go. I think it's only you that's on there, Willie, is it? On these. But the one we're deciding today is the ad hoc review of schemes, and that's the full council one. I don't know whether you want to, there's 3 members of the non-aligned group. I don't know whether you want to self-nominate or whether you want to, but we could do a decision today. Who wants to go on it? Okay. So that's Willie on that. And okay, and if I take it that Paul and Andy will be substituting you, seeing they've came in now.
Perhaps then if Councillor Scobie wishes, I'll ensure that officers brief Councillor Scobie in the work of the committee so that he's able to hit the ground running, and perhaps arrange a meeting with the chair as well so that we can make sure we're all on the same page, because it's a very active committee.
Okay, and if you consider the other 2, but it's not part of this decision, okay? Who wants to go on that? I think you're the only one on it. Sorry, Andy?
I'm just wondering whether we actually should have, obviously it's social work's responsibility, but that subcommittee will cease to operate in its current guise just now when the IGB formally meets, and I think it's going to be November. I'm looking at Gavin for guidance here. So what would be the purpose at this moment in time? Because the chair, Jim's there, actually wound it up at the last meeting, because it's not going to meet again.
No, I understand that, and you're absolutely right, but there'd be probably no point of appointee, but, you know, if it is here just now and it is a vacancy now, it is live just now, and by a few days' time it won't be live. But, so, I mean, you can take that into consideration, but the only other one is the Welfare Reform Subcommittee. And I think you're on Policy Resources as well. Are you the only one? Yep. Okay, so it won't be you as well, but you can decide that. Okay. So can we note 1, note 2, note 3, and we've agreed that Will is now on that ad hoc review of schemes. Yeah. We're shutting that down. Okay, if you move on to item 9, which is a review of standing orders and schemes of delegation, the report asks members to consider recommendations from the ad hoc subcommittee in relation to amendments to standing orders and appointment of parent council representatives on the Education Committee. The ad hoc subcommittee also considered the proposals from Wigton Area Committee on community input at area committee meetings and is carrying out further consultations as they agreed with other area committee as part of its considerations. The ad hoc subcommittee has also been looking at the development of schemes of administration and delegation to committees and to officers, highlighting that further work is required and reports will be brought back to full council at subsequent meetings. I'll open up the meeting to members. Gail?
Thank you, Leader. Just a very brief question. We're agreeing to the 2 parent council reps. It was just to ensure that they're non-voting the same as the teacher reps.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we can make sure that that's implicit within that. Okay, can we go to the recommendations? Can we agree 1, 2, 3, 4 and 8 and note 5, 6 and 7? Okay. I've lost. Well, 10, it's a minutes, isn't it? No, it's a minutes, is it? Is it the minutes first? Right, can we move on to item 10, which is the minutes for noting and approval? Is it a new sheet? Can we move on to the ad hoc review schemes sub?
Happy to move. I'll second that, Leader.
Thank you. The Crichton Subcommittee, 4th of June. So I'll move.
Second.
Okay. Employment Appeals, 12th of June.
Happy to move. Second.
28th August.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
The licensing panel, 2nd of June.
Happy to move.
Second.
18th of June.
Happy to move, and he wants to move 7th of July and the 1st of September as well, Chair. No.
Okay.
I will second 18th of June and the 7th of July. And I'll second the 1st of September, Leader.
Okay, the pension sub, 27th of August.
Move.
Happy to second.
And the scrutiny performance, 20th of August. Yeah, Richard Brody. Richard, you want to? And Alistair, do you want to say?
Yeah, I'll second that, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, sorry, just give us a minute. I've lost my report. Okay, we've moved on to any other business. 11.1, we've obviously, as indicated at the start of the meeting, I've accepted a notice of motion from Archie and Graham Tate on the matter of the trade union bill. A report on the issue was presented to COSLA leaders on Friday as a result of a request to COSLA by representatives from the Scottish local government trade unions for support in their lobbying position against the bill. The report highlighted that the bill would dilute the efficacy and value of existing long-standing employment arrangements in place between councils and trade unions, and leaders agreed that COSLA should lobby the UK government against the bill. Can I ask Archie if he wishes to move the motion?
Thanks very much, Chair. I don't know if people have got a copy of the motion, Chair, just for...
No. Okay, Finlay.
Chair, can I call for a recess of half an hour for us to look at this before we start discussing it?
I'll take the motion first. I'll get Archie to propose the motion and then we'll have the recess on the motion. Okay, but I don't think half an hour, but anyway, but we'll decide that in a minute. Archie?
Thanks very much. You're just looking at the recommendations. Obviously, the situation where withdrawal of delegation from policy and resources may be appropriate at this time if we're going to take it forward.
Okay, can we consider whether or not to withdraw a delegation?
Leader, thanks very much for taking this emergency motion to today's full council. I believe this motion will support our trade unions and fundamentally oppose the actions of the UK government and what I see as a severe attack on workers' rights. And because of the situation on Friday, perhaps a slight amendment in the last bullet point on the actual motion itself, which says that in the event the bill becomes law, follows the lead of other councils, take out such as Glasgow and put in and COSLA because of that particular change. Now, before anyone says that they don't understand what the bill means, let me try and update members. The Trade Union Bill was introduced in the House of Commons on the 15th of July 2015, described as legislation to reform trade unions and to protect essential public services against the strikes that was brought by Her Majesty the Queen. However, alongside the bill, the Department of Business, Innovation and Skills has consulted on regulations that would require to implement ballot thresholds in important public services. And I would like to understand which public service is not important. Perhaps the Department of Business, Innovation and Skills is not an important business public service. These thresholds would mean that even if the overwhelming majority of union members who took part in the ballot voted in favour of industrial action, it could not happen unless at least 40% of eligible members had voted in favour. I am sure all members will appreciate the utter hypocrisy of MPs, every one of whom was elected by less than 40% of eligible voters, calling for such a threshold. Indeed, not a single member in this room was elected by more than 40% of eligible voters. The bill will also abolish check-off in the public sector, which is where union membership payments are deducted from union members' salaries by their employer and paid to unions. So the courts can deduct money from council employees' wages to pay debts, but the law will prevent the council from doing so for their own staff union dues, for no other reason than a blatant attempt by the government to undermine trade unions and reduce members. One of the areas that concern me, and one I see as a clear attack on employees, is the power for a minister, may by regulations require a relevant public sector employer to publish information relating to facility time taken by union officials. Now, as a councillor, a lot of my time and casework is done at home, as it is, and I'm sure with all councillors here today. That was and still is part of the job, but as a representative of an employee, I would expect a reasonable time to carry out my role in protecting the workers' right, as we would a constituent's right. I wonder if this is just the thin edge of the wedge. There would be a new legal requirement relating to supervision of picketing, requiring the picket supervisor to inform the police when a picket line would be in place. Imagine if we had to tell the police of when we will do our surgeries, or imagine if the various election candidates in this room were told they had to tell the police when they were doing a stall on the street. At a time when police resources are already badly stretched, it's hard to think of a bigger waste of time and public money than police having to monitor and on occasion police a handful of picketers. The bill will also allow the use of agency workers to cover and therefore undermine industrial actions. Now, I am nothing against agency workers, indeed they serve a very important purpose. However, what isn't clear is that if agency workers cover public service workers during a strike action, health and safety could be affected. Now, as a lifelong trade unionist in my civilian life, I have seen and been involved in many improvements both for employee and employer and for nearly 20 years, and I've seen that in the council as well. I was a shop steward at a nuclear establishment, and in that time I never needed to strike, and indeed helped the management on the site on numerous occasions overcome some real problems that could have led to early closure of that particular site. I'm proud of my trade union background. Indeed, I am proud of the way trade unions have taken forward basic skills, not only with their members, but in local communities as well. Basic skills such as reading and writing are being delivered by trade union learning reps. We in this council are on the verge of having a learning agreement in place that will see a lot of opportunity for our workforce in many learning ways. This bill will significantly hinder that opportunity. Leader, I am sure that other members will wish to say something on this, and whether they support the motion or not, it is only right that we give the members the opportunity to speak on the matter, given the fact that the bill is currently going through Parliament before. Therefore, time is on the essence. I am also aware that Uncosla leaders unanimously agreed to oppose this bill and issued a statement of opposition. For information, I have not advised the police in advance that I was bringing this motion forward. There is no supervisor involved and there are no picket lines outside. And if members do vote today, although I hope there is no vote, there will be no 40% through a threshold, because the last time I checked, we as a council were still democratic. Leader, thank you for taking this motion. I'd like to formally propose a motion as set out in the paper with the amendment.
Thanks, Leader. I've got nothing to add, but happy to second Archie's motion.
Okay, thanks. You've now got a paper in front of you. Do you want to take, 20 minutes? Okay. Yep. We'll take 20 minutes while I come back. So, I'll open it up to members. Jane first.
It's thank you very much indeed, Leader. It's a point of clarification, actually. I just want the first clarification, then I maybe make some observations. But the last bullet point of this emergency motion indicates that in the event that the bill becomes law, we undertake not to cooperate with any measures in the legislation. I mean, can I possibly have an explanation? That sounds as if we would be prepared to say, despite the fact that this is the law of the land, this council would be not agreeing to abide by the law. Could I possibly have clarification from the mover of the motion on that?
I have queried that. Absolutely not. What members are saying, there are plenty of things which would not be prescribed by law, such as the provision of information, etc. The council, of course, would not be committing itself to an illegal act. However, what we would be doing is that we would not be cooperating around some of the processes and procedures. Of course, because the council of course, couldn't take a decision of illegality, and it was very clear at COSLA the unions were not asking for that at this point. So therefore, this is about not cooperating, because in advance of putting this into practice, there'll be a request for considerable amounts of data and other information. So what we're seeking from members is, in this motion, members are asking us, giving a permission not to cooperate. Does not give any officer or this council the ability to take an illegal act.
Okay, we'll get Andy first.
Thanks very much, Leader. I think it's imperative that actually we support every legal mechanism to combat what is, in my opinion, a very vindictive act, or it will be a bill just now, but when it becomes through, if it comes through, will be just that vindictive. Further, I think this council should be recognising the role that the joint trade unions have played in education and in health and safety matters, where they're very, very proactive with council officers and the general public in ensuring people reach their potential as far as we possibly can. And the joint trade unions have actually actively championed those actions. So I'm happy to support Archie entirely in what he's saying.
Archie, you want to?
Yeah, just to come back on the non-cooperation, I agree with everything that the Chief Exec's actually said. I am not asking for this council to do anything illegal. It's about non-cooperation, about the information that was said, Chair.
Willie?
Yeah, Chair, and I think we've got to be said that bad laws have to be resisted, and I think this is a bad piece of legislation that's coming through. It does go, attacks the democratic right, and indeed may be breaching an individual's human rights, notwithstanding, what's coming forward with the British Bill of Rights or whatever. Chair, can I just make mention to what you said earlier in terms of the motion that Ian Graham put forward? Having spoken to
no, you can't.
My point, Chair, here is that having spoken to
Listen, you asked me a question there, Willie. I said
okay.
no.
The point I'm making, Chair, is that having spoken to Archie, the wording is embedded in the motion that came forward from Archie, so I'm quite happy. Not quite happy. I will withdraw the motion, however spurious your reasons were for not taking it. So
excuse me, Councillor Scobie, spurious in which way?
Yeah, can I explain? Yeah,
no,
Chair.
Spurious in which way? I'll ask you to withdraw that remark.
I'll withdraw, Chair. Well, yeah, I think we should look at 10.1 as well as 10.4, Chair. However, on this, we have, as I said earlier, we've got to resist bad laws, and I would hope that the Council will do everything to resist this piece of legislation that's coming forward, and I hope it never reaches the statute in that respect, and with the opposition parties getting together and stopping this. So I think as a council we should be following the examples of other councils and resisting a non-cooperation, Chair.
Gail?
Thank you. The motion was signed on the 24th of September because the meeting didn't happen until the 25th of September.
Yes,
so this is preempted.
No.
The basis of the motion being accepted today as a late motion was that additional information had come forward from COSLA on Friday and a statement from the COSLA leaders. That was the day after this motion was submitted.
We knew the COSLA paper was there. We knew that it was coming up, and that's why we couldn't put anything. That's why we're saying.
But you didn't know what the decision was when it came in.
No, we didn't know. The decision isn't in the motion. The decision isn't in the motion, and that's why you've got the paper on the information.
Chair, whilst I agree with the motion that we commit to promote the positive role that trade unions bring to society, I move an amendment that that's the only thing we can agree on this item. Trade unions are a valuable institution in British society, and dedicated trade unionists have a strong history of working hard to represent their members, campaigning for improved safety at work and giving support to their members when it's needed. But it's only fair that the rights of unions are balanced with the rights of hard-working taxpayers who rely on public services. It's wrong that politicised union leaders can hold the country to ransom with demands that only a small percentage of their members voted for, causing misery for millions of people and harming our economy too. I'm glad this bill will rebalance the interests of employers, employees, the public and the rights of trade unions by introducing a 50% voting threshold for union ballot turnouts. The requirement for there to be a simple majority of votes in favour would remain. To tackle the disproportionate impact of strikes in essential public services such as health, education, fire and transport, a requirement would be introduced in addition to the 50% minimum voting turnout, so that 40% of those entitled to vote must vote in favour of industrial action for it to take place. Action will also have to be taken to ensure strikes cannot be called on the basis of ballots conducted years before. The bill also introduced a transparent opt-in process for union subscriptions to political funds. Political donations should always be voluntary, and this will help ensure the case. Archie mentioned about democracy, and some of us were elected in a lower turnout percentage of the vote. Well, voting to take part in strike action and voting in a general election or council election are two completely different votes. MPs are elected from a range of candidates, whereas a strike is simply a yes or no ballot. Strikes affect everyone, but only union members can vote, and I think it's only fair they should have a decent turnout to make a decision. Introducing a threshold for strikes in key public services will mean they can only go ahead of 40% of those entitled to vote in the ballot on favour of strike. And I think it's important that it applies to health, schools and transport to protect our taxpayers. The end on the ban on using agency staff to cover for striking workers, this is an anomaly, and removing it will help schools and hospitals arrange cover for striking staff, so there should be less disruption to the public. The introduction of the 50% turnout threshold for strike ballots will ensure they have a real mandate. It means less disruption for strikes where union leaders have not even persuaded a majority of their members to vote. The union check-off. Under the check-off process, many public sector workers who are union members have their subscription taken directly from their salary, administered by their employers. This was a practice introduced at a time when many people didn't have bank accounts, and before direct debits or digital payments existed as a convenient and secure way of people to transfer money. I think there is a clear argument in the 21st century era of direct debits and digital payments. Public resources should not be used to support the collection of trade union subscriptions. The removal of check-off will modernise the relationship between employees and the trade union while removing the burden of administration from the employer. The move also gives the employee greater control over the subscription, allowing them to set up their own direct debit in their chosen trade union and giving them greater consumer protection under the direct debit guarantee. With regards to whether this is just an attempt for the government to cut funding to our opponents, it's not at all. This is all to do with transparency, and if union members wish to make political contributions, they're still free to do so. We also had a mention of why the picketing regulation should change. It's certainly not placing any more draconian requirements on picketing. There's nothing in this bill which goes beyond what is already required in the Code of Practice on picketing, a code which has been followed without difficulty by most unions for decades. Having extra security or a responsible person in the picket line will stop the intimidation of many staff who've chosen not to strike.
So you're putting a counter amendment? Are you putting an amendment, sorry?
Well, the counter amendment is that we don't support the call on the government to scrap the trade union bill, and if the event of the law becomes law, we don't follow the lead of other councils. The only thing I agreed with in the motion was to commit to promote the positive role that trade unions bring to society.
Seconder? Okay. Ian?
You have nothing more to add, but I'm happy to second that.
Andy?
I think the Tory party staff briefing actually says it all. Have no further comment.
Archie?
Thanks very much, Chair, and obviously pleased to get members' involvement in this discussion, and I just wonder when Finlay walked into George Osborne for a minute there, and I looked at things like he said when he said, we don't want to put any more draconian measures in place for this particular bill. That means there's draconian measures in place already. So if there's any more, when you talk about representing people at the end of the day, it's about representing your constituents. Your constituents are members of trade unions as well. But not only that, when you look at, when he said things about, other, taxpayers being unhelped by the strikes, well, union members are taxpayers as well, and whatever we try to do as a trade union, we try to help and assist. There's been 30% less strikes in the last 30 years by trade unions because of the improvements that's actually been made in the discussions that have been held by employees and employers through the trade union movement. So I see no reason to change the motion in this particular case.
Jane?
Leader, I will say that I don't have the benefit of either Jeremy or David's staff political support. I really rather resent, in many ways, being bounced into something like this, for which I have not had time to prepare. I think a number of members would feel the same, because there are some things in here which I absolutely agree with in this motion. But the way it's framed and the fact that I haven't had time to prepare, Leader, gives me really no choice at all. The COSLA papers last Friday, you received a presentation from the local government trade unions, and there was no covering bill or covering report by COSLA, and there was no briefing prepared by our people either. So we've had absolutely nothing to help us consider this in a dispassionate way, which is why I am even more mulish than I would be normally about something like this coming to us, without any opportunity to consider it carefully. Every member will make up their own mind. I'm absolutely sure about that. I echo every member's view of the efficacy and helpfulness of unions. No question about it. I'm absolutely pro that in my own private life and in life here. It is quite obvious that unions are a real asset to us. But, Leader, simply really because I can't pick out the bits that I'm prepared to support out of this here in the time that I've been given and make a sensible fist of it, and because here I have in that final bullet point there, I'm sorry, it just does not read well. Any member of the public reading that bullet point would have taken it as I took it, I'm afraid. However much I am assured, and I'm quite prepared to accept the assurance, anybody reading that would take, I think, the wrong feeling from it. And for that reason, I cannot support this motion.
Thank you. Can I just say that on the COSLA, you got the papers for COSLA, obviously, and you got the briefings from the paper. The presentation was completely separate. It was completely separate. It was not part of that decision-making process. It was a completely separate agenda item. So the presentation came before, and then they left, and then there was another few items. Then it was the actual paper on that. So that's when the decision was made. So it wasn't made for the presentation after that.
Thank you for that explanation.
Okay. Who's next? Colin.
Thank you, Leader. I actually don't think it's too unreasonable to expect, if someone in a trades union feels strongly about an issue, to have a 50% turnout, and I certainly don't think so 40% if it's essential services. I'd just like to answer Archie's point about the strikes being a lot less in the last 30 years. I would put that probably down more to the introduction of trade union reforms by Margaret Thatcher than anything else. I'll watch my back on the way out, don't worry. I would wholeheartedly support Councillor Carson.
Tom?
Yeah, you can't pick and choose out of this bill. I mean, it's one's got to look at the reasons why this bill was brought in. And you could understand if it was, as has been alluded to, 30 or 40 years ago, where there were strikes left, right and centre. Fewer strikes in the last few years per annum than there has ever been. And therefore you can only say this is politically motivated. Bunch of public school boys high in the hog of an election victory. A bunch of public school boys high in the hog of an election victory, determined to kick the feet from under the working class. Simple as that. And I think it should be resisted on those grounds alone.
Yeah, I don't think public school boys have got anything to do with it. I think it's it's a bill is wrong and that's it. But as far as I'm concerned, but anyway, Ian.
Thank you, Leader. And briefly, going back to the emergency motion, I know this was raised before the fact it was signed on Thursday the 24th. I'd just ask governance advice on that. This motion quite clearly says that this council notes the recent request to COSLA by representatives of the Scottish local government trade unions. That had not happened. When this was signed, that had not happened. Can I ask governance advice on that?
My understanding is that the request had been made, although COSLA hadn't met, and certainly the Glasgow City Council decision was in advance of this motion being received, and they were acting in response to that request also.
Archie?
Yeah, I have to say it wasn't just Glasgow City Council that took it in advance. Edinburgh, Stirling, and other councils took it in advance as well.
Gail?
Thank you, Leader. I have actually a lot of sympathy with Councillor Maitland's points. I think I've been following the bill since it was announced in May, and it's now on to its second reading with its first reading in July. So I'm fairly familiar with the bill, but I don't think that all members in the chamber are. They don't understand all of the bill. We've got down some bullet points from Archie which encapsulate the areas that he doesn't like, but not necessarily the positivity of the protection of the public and preventing any intimidation on the picket line. I wholeheartedly support Finlay. You will not be surprised to hear that. But I do have huge sympathies with other councillors who have not had the information that we've had.
Okay, can we go to the vote? Sorry, Jane.
I think I will put in a counter amendment, which is nothing more than the first sentence.
Have you got a seconder?
Go on, somebody.
No. And could you clarify the first sentence?
The first sentence simply means, as a major employer in Dumfries and Galloway, this council welcomes the positive benefits that arise from the relationship that we have with recognised trade unions. Full stop.
Second that, Leader.
Okay, Finlay.
Chair, that was in basis exactly what my amendment was. That's to commit to promote the positive role that unions bring to society, but in effect they're the same. I would suggest. I don't, unless Councillor Maitland wants to point out the difference between the two.
No, not at all. If that's all you're putting forward, then that's absolutely fine. That's fine.
Okay, so we've got a motion, we've got an amendment. Can we go to the vote? Are you clear about that?
Yeah, just to clarify, the motion as proposed by Councillor Dryborough is as in your papers. The only change being that in the third bullet point at the bottom, that in the event that the bill becomes law, follows the lead of COSLA. So that's the change that you wanted there. And the amendment is that. Are we happy to go with the words of Councillor Carson, that we promote the positive role that trade unions bring to society? Full stop. Okay, so we'll proceed to the vote. Leader?
Motion.
Provost?
Motion.
Councillor Bell? Oh, he's gone. Councillor Blake?
Amendment.
Councillor Brodie?
Motion.
Councillor Carruthers?
Amendment.
Councillor Karen Carruthers?
Amendment.
Councillor Carson?
Amendment.
Councillor Collins? Councillor Davidson?
Motion.
Councillor Dempster?
Motion.
Councillor Dick.
Motion.
Councillor Diggle. Councillor Dryborough.
Motion.
Councillor Ferguson.
Motion.
Councillor Foster.
Motion.
Councillor Geddes.
Motion.
Councillor Groom.
Amendment.
Councillor Yen.
Motion.
Councillor Lever.
Motion.
Councillor McCautry.
Motion.
Councillor McClung.
Motion.
Councillor McComb.
Motion.
Councillor McCutcheon.
Motion.
Councillor McKee.
Motion.
Councillor Maitland.
Amendment.
Councillor Mail.
Amendment.
Councillor Marshall.
Motion.
Councillor Martin.
Motion.
Councillor Ogilvie.
Motion.
Councillor Prentice.
Motion.
Councillor Scobie.
Motion.
Councillor Stitt.
Motion.
Councillor Syme.
Motion.
Councillor Tate.
Motion.
Councillor Thompson.
Motion.
Councillor Tuckfield.
Amendment.
Councillor Witts.
Motion.
Councillor Wood.
Motion.
And Councillor Wiper.
Amendment.
I didn't have a vote. You didn't call my name.
Oh, sorry.
That was fine.
Sorry, Councillor McGregor.
Amendment.
Sorry, apologies. I had ticked you. Should have asked. Yeah. The motion is carried 29 votes to 11.
Okay, if we can move on to item 12, we're asked to agree to adopt a resolution to exclude the public from the meeting in terms of section 50A 4 and paragraph 1 of the part 1 of Schedule 70 of the Local Government Scotland Act 1973. Can we